Good morning, everyone. Wanted to take a few minutes here to touch on sort of the crop progress so far and then what the weather has done here in the past week or two. A lot of the bottom tier counties, probably the 2-tier counties of north of the Illinois border, got quite a bit of corn planted in the past 10 days here. So it was good to see some crop getting in the ground as we move further north, like Bob mentioned. Some of the guys further north haven't even turned a wheel out in the field yet. So drastically different progresses of corn planting, but one thing we did experience was quite a bit of precipitation last Tuesday through Thursday across much of the southern part of the state of Wisconsin. As we can see here, as we get into some of the navy blues and lighter blues, that's 175 to over 200% of the mean precipitation for that last week in April there. So most growers in this band experienced rainfalls somewhere in that 1 to 3 inch range. Some of it came fairly intensely as some of the storms packed some pretty good power. After that, we did experience some relatively warm temperatures, not excessively hot, but we saw some temperatures in the mid to upper 70s. So when we combine those two together, that often leads to a combination or a formula where we can see some soil crusting. So crusting can reduce stands 50%. The photo to the right there was a plot that I had planted last summer, a soybean plot on some silt loam soil just before Mother's Day. So we got it in some pretty fair soil conditions. Shortly thereafter, we got pounded with a pretty intense 2-inch rainfall. And then we can see what impact that had on the crusting of the soil surface. So in this particular plot, we dropped the soybeans at 140,000. And we only had about 65,000 come up. So we were at less than half of our intended stand. And you can see there the plants breaking off as they try to come pull those cotyledons up through the soil surface. So just a consideration there that we have had a little bit warmer temperatures following some rain, so we could see some crusting there. The third bullet point there, emerged plants can still suffer significant yield loss. This is probably more fitting to corn, where we see those late emerging plants as being more like weeds, where they're taking resources but not really contributing a lot to yield. And we'll take a look at what the data looks like on late emerging plants as we move along here. So soybeans are fairly compensatory. So even if we do have lower stands, we can still pull off some pretty decent soybean yields if we have reduced stands. But one thing we can do when we have situations with heavy soil crusting is run the rotary hoe through that field. Sometimes it may take multiple passes. In a situation like this, we're far too late to run that rotary hoe through. Will probably cause even further crop damage, and we can see that this crusted soil surface is extremely dry, not likely to fracture a whole lot if we run that rotary hoe pass through there. So the earlier the better with the rotary hoe. If we still have a little bit of soil moisture where we can travel fairly quickly, 8, 10, 12 miles an hour over that soil surface with the rotary hoe and get some nice shattering. We might lose a few plants, but we're going to help the majority of them emerge well. And finally, replant should be the final consideration, more so in corn. As we mentioned, soybeans are pretty compensatory. So we'll talk about that here on our next webinar, replant considerations, but often we have to have some pretty low thresholds before we consider replant.
That concludes this Pioneer Growing Point Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Pioneer for more agronomy insights.